I'm David Anderson. I'm Vice President of the Board. Unfortunately, Board President Amy Clendenin is away on a work assignment, so she is unable to join us this evening. My understanding is that Mr. Law is on his way. First item is to approve the agenda. I have a couple of amendments that I would like to propose, if I may. The first is that between items 1 and 2, I would like to add the pledge, please. And the second is that Dr. Wiley is unable to be here this evening, and so item 4.04, there's nothing urgent about the school calendar, and I would like to propose that we remove that item from tonight's agenda. If somebody would care to second my motion.
Second.
All in favour? Anybody opposed? Thank you. Okay, so we have an item sort of 1.1, which is the Pledge of Allegiance, and we're removing items 4.04. So with that then, if everybody can rise and join the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, and we have our first opportunity for public comment. I'd ask you to limit any comments to 3 minutes. I'd like you to start, if you could, by giving us your name and your address. And if you have any affiliation to any of the schools, if you could share that with us as well. Mr. Buck.
Dave Buck, 124 South Elm. I'm a grandfather of a fourth grader in Bristol. It's amazing what you can think of during snowfall, and you're sitting looking out the window and just contemplating. So, I know that strategic planning is coming up. If I was the wizard of the Webster Grove School District, this is what I do. Vision. As a learning community, SGSD inspires every student to unlock their unlimited potential, lift up our world, reach for the stars, and accomplish things they never thought possible. Potential, Dave, that comes from you, actually. Mission. The district is a community committed to the academic and personal success of every student, we all know that, and the overall excellence of the district. Overall goal, one goal. Everybody, this district needs to fill in the blank. The purpose of education is blank. My fill-in is to ignite curiosity, period. That's the overall goal. 4 strategies. I call them 4 C's. For those of you that ever followed basketball with Coach Dean Smith in North Carolina, he was famous for the 4-corner offense. This is the 4-corner offense. Number 1, challenge, as an academic challenge. I think overall, our curriculum, I've done this before, is too easy, and we can better help the kids stretch through challenge. Second, character. You know where I am on character. I think we ought to teach it. Third, creativity, same thing. We put a lot of emphasis on critical thinking, but in the present and long term, creative thinking is more important. And we ought to be teaching it to everybody. Fourth, connectivity, meaning both technology and humanity. We have to find the balance. I think things are out of balance now, and these kids need to learn to connect to humans as well as to their devices. Core values, I think there are 10 of them. Learning, thinking, leadership, collaboration, diversity, innovation, courage, individuality, self-knowledge, and fun. We don't have fun as a core value, and we should. Lastly, the symbol. I've never been a big fan of the tree and the 10 leaves. I get it, you know. But I'd rather have a visual that is inspired and plays off the vision of the district. So the visual would be that of something like this. Different colored hands of kids holding up our world and reaching for the stars. Unlimited potential, UP equals up. And the slogan to me would be something in the vein of as in inspiring all students to wake up, get up, stand up, speak up, look up, lift up our world, and reach up and touch the stars. That's what I'd do if I was the wizard of the Western Grove School District. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comments? Please.
I'm Ed Johnson. I live at 336 Lithia in Rock Hill. I have 2 children that have graduated from the Webster Grove School District and 2 grandchildren that have been a part of the Webster Grove School District. I'm also the director with the Webster Rock Hill Ministries and an alderman in the city of Rock Hill. My main concern is about your decision on, I guess, the bond issue and actually, I guess, adding the expansion at Hickson. I support the expansion, but I supported actually your other option. And the reason I support the other option is that you've gone through identifying the neighborhood schools. And one of the neighborhood schools that you identified was Gibbons. And there's a lot of culture that went into identifying and renaming the computer school. Because Webster is made up of a lot of different neighborhoods. And most people don't tend to get outside of their neighborhood. But we talk community. If you turn Steger into, or the Steger Gibbons into just another neighborhood school, some people will never cross that Kirkham divide. Right now, the way it's set up, a child will come into the Webster Grove School District, and it doesn't matter where they are by 6th grade right now, they're going to hit Steger. They're going to come into Rock Hill. And from 6th grade, 7th grade, and 8th, they're going to come together. By going with that option of saying expanding the neighborhood schools, because most of the children are just as proud of their neighborhood school as we as adults tend to say we're proud of high school. In Webster, it's what neighborhood school did you go to? And there's a culture for each neighborhood school. If you look at it and say you're going to turn Steger Gibbons into a neighborhood school, what's the culture? Will it be the culture of the Gibbons that's a specialty that has extra pride? Or will it be similar to Hudson or Edgar Road? Versus right now, Gibbons School has a special, unique culture about it. The children that come there, they feel that, hey, they are something special and they're ready to push it. Likewise, each of the kids that go to other schools, they look at that and say that's important. So I agree with your reason for, say, expanding. But I see what you're about to eliminate is an opportunity for some children to be able to come together at Steger, but also, not just that, the diversity that they will incline. You push inclusion and diversity. How many students, if you turn Steger into a neighborhood school, will have the opportunity to be able to go to a school that has a male African American as their principal in leadership? If Steger is a neighborhood school, a majority of the students in your Webster Grove School District won't be able to see it. You're about to eliminate one of the things I consider one of the greatest opportunities that you had by shifting and going inclusion. Now people won't have to go, as they say, across Kirkham. And most will be very happy not to go there. You're also going to turn Hickson into a much larger school. Now, all the people around there, the traffic that they're going to have, they may not be quite as happy about having that. But I look at it and say, what you're going to lose is something that you just created, was having an opportunity to show diversity within your school district. And some of the students would have been able to come into the system, have an African-American male as a principal of the school system, leave there, go to Hickson, where they have another minority that's actually a principal of a school system, before they go to the high school. You're about to eliminate that. And also, you're about to eliminate a lot of people being able to come to Rock Hill. So I support your expansion, but I look at it and say, what you're about to eliminate right now is an opportunity for the rest of this country to see how do you pull it in and say, hey, how do you work together and be inclusive? Because being able to build on those two, that minority inclusion, to me is something you're going to pass up, and it's sad. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anybody else? Okay. Next we have celebrations. So celebrations from the board. Christine?
Yes. Oh, and they just popped up. So Edgar Road received scholarships and buddy rides, or is offering scholarships and buddy rides for PTO-led after-school enrichment classes, and they're underway right now. That allowed more kids to participate. I also want to invite my fellow board members to Edgar Road's Family Reading Night on January 31st at 6 p.m., which is going to feature Boeing engineer, Tuskegee graduate, and Webster Groves School District parent Chris Miller as our keynote speaker, dinner, and novel engineering, literature, and design thinking activities. This is our second annual Family Reading Night, and it's sponsored by our Edgar Road Schools Equity Parent Group, a PTO-funded committee. And also, I wanted to remind my fellow board members that I received a letter in the mail today that I don't know if everybody receives because of our mail these days in Webster Groves. But the deadline, it says on here, is May 1st, and I talked to Sherry, and she suggested March 1st is the day to file that report.
Which report is it? The financial disclosure?
Financial disclosure.
Yeah.
So just, and what time is the reading night?
Oh, the doors open at 5:45.
Okay.
This on January 31st.
Yes, I got that.
Thank you.
Joe?
I would just shout out to the ladies, to our girls swim team who are having an amazing season so far this year. Some really good swimmers. It'll be exciting to see how they end up.
Good.
I don't have any.
I just want to, Dr. Wiley's not here, but I wanted to compliment her on the activity that happened on, was it January 5th? And seemed like a pretty decent turnout and very well organized, and hope that the candidates that came to that had a good experience with our school district. So kudos to Dr. Wiley and those who helped her on that.
I did attend that, and I'll just say ditto for that.
I was there as well, and it was good. Yes, so got that. Good. All right. Our student advisor, do you have anything you'd care to share?
Yes, the high school's drama students traveled to Kansas City for the thespian conference, and a lot of people competed, and we did really well. We had 3 students who qualified for nationals in Nebraska. They got superiors. So there was Grace Engel and Tia Gardner who did a duo scene, and they qualified for nationals and got to perform the showcase at the end. And myself, who did a monologue and now going to perform nationals. So
Congratulations.
Awesome.
Anything else?
No.
Okay, good stuff. Administrators.
Kathy, you got anything on your end?
I got one. The Webster Echo has received a first-class honor from the National Scholastic Press Association, and the Echo website was named a finalist for the organization's Peacemaker Award, to the national award.
I wanted to give a few kudos to, I attended the PAC meeting last Monday. That's a group that gets together in our school system with children who have, a lot of them children have IEPs, 504s, and they get together. They had a special, they honored some different district staff last week, and Dr. Fields, Mary Beth Dutcher, Jasmine Banks, Zach Smith, and Tim Havis were all honored for their support of particular children, which was really neat. A lot of good things with all suburban jazz and concert bands, a lot of representation from Steger all the way through the high school. Celebrating, we have the Dr. MLK community event, which is Sunday. Ed and I do that together. And so looking forward to that particular event. If you have the opportunity to come, it's a really powerful event. It starts with a march from City Hall to Steger Gibbons. Then there's a dinner, and then the presentation, the event starts at 5:45, which will be really neat. Our middle school, high school step team will be showcasing their talents. This time around, it'll be neat. Kudos to the ADL came to Steger. So last year we had our high school students that participated in anti-racist, anti-bias training at the high school through the Anti-Defamation League. This year we did that at Steger. And so last week we had 20 elementary school students who got to experience that. Jessica and Patrick, our student advisors, were recently featured on the radio show, Radio 63119. They killed it, did a great job just talking about their roles as student advisors and different thoughts they had, ideas for the school system, both currently as well as moving forward. It's a while ago, but just wanted to give props to the Hickson community. The Hickson community raised over $8,500 for families before the holidays for different Hickson families in need, and we're able to distribute those to different families and supporting their food needs and their other basic needs over the holidays. Really neat. Lots of concerts. Boys did well at the Merrimack tournament. The boys basketball team won the Merrimack tournament, which was big. Joe mentioned the swim team, and our wrestling team is also doing really well. And if you get an opportunity to go out and see them, I've gotten to see them. We have both boys and girls teams wrestling this year, and it's really exciting to see just the success that our young ladies are doing in wrestling. Very neat. That's it, Mr. Addison.
Thank you. Sir,
I'm able to log in now for those of you if you want to try logging in. And if not, I printed copies, and just let us know and we'll make copies for you, detailed copies of the agenda.
Thank you. Has everybody had a chance to review the correspondence log? And does anybody have any questions about that? Okay. And the board calendar.
Nothing new.
Anybody? Yeah, I was going to say I wasn't aware of anything new on that. Does anybody have any questions about the board calendar? Okay. All right. We'll come to the main purpose of this evening's meeting. And so I just want to talk just a little bit before we go as to exactly how we're going to handle this. So this is related to the safety and accessibility and space issue that has been before the board and that we discussed at the recent workshop meeting, and that has been broadly reported and that was alluded to with various of the public comments as well. So what we're going to do here. First, we're going to get comments from Dr. Simpson and Mr. Alleman, just in relation to anything that hasn't perhaps been shared before. Then I will entertain a motion from the board as to any course of action the board might care to take. Having been proposed and duly seconded, I will then offer up an opportunity for anybody to make any amendments to that. And so the way we will work this is that if an amendment is offered, we will go and debate that amendment is offered and seconded. We will debate that amendment. There'll be time for comment. There'll be a vote on that. And we'll keep doing that for as long as there are amendments that are offered. Once the final amendments have been offered, depending on whether one of the amendments has replaced the initial motion, if that has happened, then we can then move to a vote because it will have been discussed. If no amendment goes forward, We will then proceed to discuss the original motion, and should the board feel appropriate, we'll then have a vote on that motion to follow. So I hope that makes sense to everybody, and we'll sort of guide through. But I think that my understanding is that's the way you're supposed to do it according to Robert's rules, and so that's the way I plan on doing it. And I've got latitude in terms of if it doesn't make sense to anybody or anything else, we'll go back, we'll revisit. I mean, I just think that's an easy way to go and do that. So I more to suggest that for the board, that's the way I'm planning on handling it. And so presuming that is sort of okay, at least as it sounds so far, first thing I'd like to do then is I'd like to call on Dr. Simpson and Mr. Ellerman to provide any further comments that they want over and above what we've already heard.
And it's not really a further comment or nothing that you haven't heard before in more detail, but just kind of prepared a statement to share, invite Bruce to share, jump in if he wants to share. And so I'll do it right now. Tonight's final recommendation is the culmination of nearly a year's worth of work and input from district community members, parents, volunteers, and certainly students and staff. Based on this information and input, including that from you, the board, it presents the best thinking and recommendation of district administration to the board regarding the path forward with respect to maintaining, improving, and right-sizing district facilities in support of student learning and achievement. Following board administration discussion January 5th, administration recommends the school district move forward with a ballot initiative this April of 2019 to address the most important safety and accessibility needs identified by the Building Advisory Committee. We're an academic institution responsible for doing our part to ensure district students are equipped with the skills, knowledge, and habits of mind to, upon graduation, thrive in whatever they do, whatever path they choose, college, career, or otherwise. Essential to their learning and development is the need to feel safe and valued. While feeling safe and valued goes much deeper than the physical environment they enter each day, the physical environments in our schools must demonstrate to our students the district's commitment to their safety and feelings of belonging. Everyone who enters our spaces should benefit from a similar feeling of safety and belonging. The items we're looking to initiate, detail for you, and pending both your and possible community approval, would assist us in making substantial progress in these critically important areas. In addition to addressing the other issues of safety and accessibility, administration is also recommending the district move forward on the same ballot initiative this April to convert Hickson into a 6th-8th grade middle school and to convert the Steger-Gibbons campus into a single neighborhood elementary school, Gibbons Elementary. This option provides the most space for a longer time for elementary students, addresses a long-standing inequity in our school district, and will provide district students with a better educational experience in the Webster Grove School District. Among the benefits, a reduction in one school transition, which we feel confident would lead to greater continuity of care for the diverse academic, social, and emotional needs of our students, greater access to a wider and deeper array of educational programming, and an improved structure for collaboration among staff. Due to exceptionally strong fiscal management and some good fortune, we have the opportunity to do all these things with the passage of a $22 million April bond issue that would not increase the tax levy for district families. Yes, we realize that Hickson Middle School will become one of the larger middle schools in the state, which is why we'll prioritize the creation and development of smaller environments, i.e. grade level wings, lunch periods, etc., characteristic of most middle school environments that thrive. We realize there are a few additional facility projects we'd like to do as a part of this work. We'll work to manage the projects as efficiently and effectively as we can, to complete the projects on time and under budget, and then look to return to the list of priorities to address some of the other items. We realize that all this work comes at a cost, which is why we worked with much thought and intention to address the very real needs that exist, while also finding a way to fund them without raising the district's debt service levy, maintaining it as is. In order to be placed on the April 2nd, 2019 ballot, which administration recommends, the district has to submit board-approved ballot language and election forms to the St. Louis County Election Board prior to its deadline of January 22nd at 5 p.m. Attached in your docs is the ballot language we'd like the board to approve this evening for submission to the St. Louis County Election Board and appearance on the April 2nd, 2019 ballot. That's all the comments I have. Mr. Ellerman, would you like to?
could stand up and applaud.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So before we move forward with any with any proposal, the first thing I'd like to do, just does anybody have any questions, sort of about anything that we've seen or heard so far?
Can I ask one question?
Yes, please, go ahead.
Based on what I just heard and the question I asked, how will we be inclusive? And a thought that I had that if redistricting happens in a way that I might assume and some southern schools become less diverse than they are currently, how intentionally will we encourage inclusivity and diversity? How will we promote diversity in our schools? And so that students would have the opportunity to, as Ed Johnson say, cross that line of Kirkham to see Rockhill.
Yeah. Well, I think the diversity in our school, it looks different in all of our schools. Some of our schools are more diverse. Certainly, through a boundary line process, we would prioritize both neighborhood schools. It's something that people move to Webster Grove School District. They think of neighborhood schools. They think of the ability to walk to schools. Currently, it's not a benefit all children receive. We'll also prioritize diverse schools. And so that'll be those will be two main tenets. But then I think from a programmatic standpoint, we'll have to look at, again, I think doing it curricularly in different ways that we do it, I think is a big thing that I know we've worked on. We talk about a lot curricular-wise, and I think what are other opportunities that we can have to bring children and adults into spaces with people that are not like them. I mean, we prioritize it with the adults, we prioritize it with our children. Are there ways that we can intentionally do that with respect to the fact, especially if some of our schools aren't as diverse as they might be. So I think we'll have to be very intentional, make it through curriculum, but then also look for other experiences. Yeah.
I have a couple of questions, if the board will indulge me. First, so I've had comments back from a number of members of the public, sort of questioning, and so obviously Dr. Coffran's report came out, perhaps didn't show the same degree of growth that we'd seen previously. I have just a fundamental question. If things stayed the same at the moment, do you believe that our schools are crowded right now?
Yeah. Our schools are very crowded. They're quite crowded. As I've told some community members, and I think I shared last time around, today's day and age with the type of environments we want for our kids, we're full. Like if we put 26 kids in a class, 30 kids in a class, would our classrooms be, would we be maybe as crowded in class? Well, we'd be more crowded. But if you set your standard much higher, maybe you wouldn't say such. But our cafeterias are crowded, our playgrounds on some spaces are crowded, we have children in hallways. Next year, if we move forward, we will have 9% of our elementary school children will be learning in a modular classroom outside on the parking lot. I actually did that data today, or on the playground. That's quite a bit. And so they've made it work. Our teachers have made the best of it, but we're quite crowded. And even if we didn't grow, we still have we need a lot of space relief. Anybody who's walked in our school system knows we're full.
Just to qualify that, I think we're talking about elementary schools. You
Thank you.
asked about schools.
And sorry, thank you. Yes, I'm referring to elementary schools, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. So the other thing I just have a procedural question. So I see language in front of me that's proposed for a bond issue. As I read this through, and so whatever, if we decide to do something that involves spending money, whatever it is, the amount, I note that this just says that the district is going to borrow money. It doesn't actually say how we're going to spend it. I'm not sure whether this is a question for Bruce or for Doug, but in terms of, there's obviously an expectation from the community, and we will go out and say this is how we plan to spend it, but the language doesn't actually say that. So
it's the first two
First
lines
line.
of the proposition. It's for the purpose of funding the cost of acquiring, constructing, renovating, repairing, improving, furnishing, or equipping school sites, buildings, and facilities. So it's
And
broad.
you don't have to be any more specific than that, because it seems to me that, okay, so...
We have at times in the past, historically, we've done bond issues in the past that have been more specific, Mossfield or a specific item, but this is actually the more common language to leave a wide variety. One of the issues I think that faces school districts is that they think they know how much things are going to cost. And yet you work real hard, and you could end up with more bonding capacity than you actually thought you needed. And this would allow, if the board chose to, this would allow for use of those additional funds for these other items. So it is very broad. It's not real specific. It could be real specific if you wanted to be, but you need to be very careful in the language that you use in the ballot measure. And historically, what you've done in the past is you have told your constituents what we're going to spend it on, and your constituents hold you accountable for that.
And so it was more just a question that clearly, for whatever we decide to go and do, it will be with a purpose in mind. And so what I wanted to understand, so basically it is the method that ensures that you do what you said you're going to do is that ultimately we are responsible to the voters of the Webster Grove School District, who can take action if we don't do what we said we'll do.
Yes.
Okay.
David, if I could interject, and I know, Doug, obviously you don't have the language that was used in 2010 for the last bond issue that was approved with the, at that time there was a no tax rate increase bond issue for the addition to the high school that actually resulted in extra money that you were just speaking of that could be used for other things that were in the plan, the master plan at that point in time. Do you recall if it was similar language to this
Very
versus
broad language, yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. As I looked at it, it just was a question. Arnold, did you have a question now?
I had a question related that, as it relates to, being crowded and things like that within the buildings. You were speaking really specifically, not about necessarily inside, quote unquote, regular classrooms, but that spaces like cafeterias, maybe gymnasiums, maybe playgrounds, ancillary rooms that would be used for kids who are
Special
getting Title
services.
I reading and special education services like that. Classrooms per se, we are not crowded within classrooms per se, although we do have modular units outside some of the buildings.
I think that's fair. You have different size classrooms, so some are a little bit more tight. We have a classroom at Edgar Road of like 12 kids, but we just put 12 kids in there. So we'll make some of those adjustments, but yeah.
But we've gone and carved up libraries, and we've gone and carved up various other
Cafeterias.
in order to make
Yeah.
these rooms, so that it's not. We've places that weren't designed to be
Yeah.
spaces. But good. I appreciate the qualification.
Wasn't there a music room at Edgar Road that's...
Yeah, the music room at Edgar Road had been a staff workroom or where the staff would gather and eat. So if you've ever been to Clark and you go in their space, it's a space that probably comfortably accommodates 12 to 14, and you'll have as many as 23 or 24 Edgar Road students that go in there to learn music, and they have their xylophones. I mean, it's pretty tough. And then you've got the cafeteria on the other side of it, which also is not good.
Well, and you've also got the modular. So all of this is predicated on the number of modular units that we have, and from a safety and accessibility standpoint, the modulars are less than ideal. And so, if what we're trying to do is to address the safety and the safety and accessibility concerns, we need to be rid of the modulars. At which point, everything's out of the window anyway. All right. If nobody has anything, so I will at this point. I will entertain a motion.
I would make the motion that the Webster Grove School District place upon the April 2nd ballot the $22 million no tax rate increase bond issue for the purpose of financing the cost of acquiring, constructing, renovating, repairing, improving, furnishing equipment, and equipping school sites, buildings, and facilities.
Okay, thank you. So do we have a second for that? Okay. All right.
Just a discussion, I just want to make sure, would that
Doug, would that have been appropriate? as
So,
far as
so
in-
just,
And in.
okay. All right.
Assuming it's the resolution that.
Yes.
I read the specifics that you
Yes.
had mentioned, so I just want to make sure it was complete and accurate and clear. Thank you.
All right.
I would make an amendment.
Okay, so yeah, so,
Propose an
so,
amendment.
I don't know, were you here when I explained how we were going to run this?
You may have done that
He wasn't.
before.
Yeah, I did, okay, all right, so,
Yeah.
okay. So now I'll entertain any amendments, and so, Arnold.
I would amend Mr. Lohr's motion that it relates to, which is actually option B, to borrow money in the amount of $22 million, to go to option A, to borrow money in the amount of $17 million.
Okay. Anybody second that? Okay, I will second that motion. So, at which point then, so Steve, just for your purposes, so what we're going to do, we will discuss the amendment now as presented, and we'll deal with that, and then we'll vote on the amendment. There'll then be an opportunity if anybody else cares to offer any other amendments. When we've dealt with all amendments, then we will actually roll back to the initial motion that was put on the table.
Okay.
Okay, so with that in mind, so Dr. Strickland, I'll give you the floor to speak to your amendment.
Thank you. And, you know, these things, and this is really to the public to also to hear this, is that we are in this position all wanting the same thing. We all want the best for the students in this school district. We all want what is best for the community's pocketbook at the same time. We want what's best for the safety and security needs of the students in this school district. So as far as the 6 of us, and 7 including Amy Clendenin and the administration, we're all in unison on those particular things. How we go about doing that, we may differ in our viewpoints of that. And one of the things that I respect about being on this board is that we can all have different viewpoints and agree to disagree and may go different directions. It doesn't mean that we're contrary to one another or whatever. We just have different perspectives from our viewpoints. So my preferred option on option A, and I'll give you my rationale for that, and it may be a little detailed here, but I think details are good.
Please take your time.
I think both options offer solutions to the situation at hand. We have issues that relate to safety and security. We have issues that relate to enrollment. To the degree that they relate to the first two, I'll comment probably at the end. To the degree that they relate to enrollment is where I differ. Option A, our projected capacity in 23-24 will be 94%. Option B will be 91% in 23-24. You say, well, how does that work? You're not giving us as much capacity. We have room to grow within our classrooms. We do not have room to grow within our special classrooms. There is a need there. Each is going to require some degree of boundary line adjustment. And option B is going to require more extensive rezoning. In going back and reading the comments from those people who submitted comments related to the proposals, there's a lot of split on rezoning. There are some people within the community say just rezone period and solve the issue. There are some people that say, hey, rezoning's not a problem. Some people say do option A without rezone, it's the minimal rezoning. Option B, that's great. We're going to have to rezone. That's wonderful. The less you can influence kids and the more you can influence programmatic nature, I would go that direction. Maybe we do need to rezone the school district. I know everybody really loves to see that happen because they've bought all the shirts and they've got the stickers on the back of their car and they can do those things. It's not a fun thing, but there will be less extensive rezoning with option A. I'm just going to quote this. Each provides any kindergarten student who starts at one school prior to the first year of implementation with the opportunity to remain in that school through 5th grade if the family chooses. Allowing children to remain in the schools in which they start will be more than likely lead to a slight temporary class size increase in some situations and involve a phasing out of the existing modular classrooms for classroom use over a number of years. I know if we go ahead with option A, those things will be solved for Edgar Road and for Clark and for Avery in a more timely manner than they would be with option B. And as we're looking at the data from Dr. Kofran, Edgar Road really has the predominant growth area. There is some question with Clark. I'll leave that there. So the considerations that we were given, is that option A provides more financial flexibility than option B. So we're not spending 22 million, we're spending 17 million. We have $5 million that we can kind of use down the road if we need it. Operational costs for this option are 25% of option B, and they're estimated at option B of $200,000. So you can do the math on that. It's the least disruptive to district stakeholders. Boundary line adjustments would be minimal. Option B, I'm going to speak to option B also here.
Yeah, please do.
That it provides more space relief at the elementary school. I think if you add classrooms at the elementary school level, you will provide space relief, maybe to not this degree. Furthers efforts for an equitable school system by providing more district students and families with a neighborhood elementary school. I think we're confused on the definition of the neighborhood elementary school. I know when Douglas Elementary was within the North Webster community, that was a neighborhood elementary school. It no longer exists. The neighborhood elementary school that would serve that area would be Avery, Hudson, and Bristol. Since the time of when we started to move kids, we did move kids to account for, my words, compliance with Brown versus Board of Education. But the children who are being moved out of the North Webster community are students who do cross the line to others, to Edgar Road and to Clark, to make those schools, quote unquote, more equitable, actually for the white community. From my perspective, to make things more equitable for the students who live in North Webster, they should go to their neighborhood schools, which are close to their neighborhood. We don't have a neighborhood school in Shrewsbury, but those students go to Edgar Road and maybe Avery, okay? But there's no quote-unquote neighborhood school there. Fewer transitions. I totally agree. There would be fewer transitions. Amy Clendenin brought up some excellent points at the last board meeting we had about those transitions with students who have some kind of need, whether it be reading or special education or some other kind of need like that. I don't disagree with fewer transitions. I think fewer transitions are a really good thing. But what are we doing to provide transitions? We're doing exactly what Brown v. Board of Education did, is we're moving kids rather than moving staff. Why can't we, as we have done in the past in this school district, move assistant principals and counselors along with 6th grade students to 7th grade and 8th grade and then rotate back? So there is smoother transition for the students. A more cohesive middle school experience and programmatic kinds of things. If the district wanted to provide the programmatic things that Hickson Middle School has, we could do that. It would cost us a little bit, but we could do that, and it would be a priority that we would just have to focus on. A more cohesive experience for the students, if we wanted to make that transition better, providing those kinds of activities that are quote-unquote middle school oriented, we could do that. Traffic was mentioned. Traffic is traffic. I think option A provides us some financial flexibility. It's less disruptive in redistricting to the community. It minimizes our operational costs. We would actually complete ADA of $550,000, I think it is, that may not be able to be completed under option B. We would also be able to complete the high school auditorium balcony situation. There would be funds left over. Safety and security needs are going to be met in both, but I'm concerned about the ADA situations not being completely finished. I don't disagree with, I really disagree with, I really agree with Ed Johnson's comment that there are many in the community who would not cross over to go to Rock Hill area, North Webster area, unless Steger existed. I think that's an important thing. I think it's also a very valid comment that he brought up about having a male black role model for our student body, our entire student body, to be able to observe in action and to be able to have a relationship with along the way. I think that's very critical, because if we do say we're about equity, then let's move staff and make it more equitable that way. So, and let's move the kids who are at Clark and Edgar Road back to their quote-unquote home school, their neighborhood schools, and make it a little bit better so they don't have to be bused all the way across this community. So those are some of my rationale. And I was looking at class sizes, and one reason I brought up about class sizes, which we are overcrowded in those spaces that were mentioned, in gymnasiums, in auditoriums, on playgrounds, cafeterias especially. But in our classrooms, we're not. And I do know we have modular classrooms on playgrounds, but I do know this, that one of the things that this community demands, and should demand even more, is while we do provide a nice, high-quality education, we should be getting a better quality of education. I'm not dismissing the staff at all in this particular comment that I'm making, but I know that the class sizes at Givens Elementary right now are some of the highest in the school district, and yet they have the highest level of learning and achievement within the school district. So, to me, if we're going to keep class sizes low, that's great, but I want to see a product come out of that that's a little bit better for our community. So that's my rationale for supporting option A and supporting $17 million.
Thank you. All right, we'll just sort of go around. Steve?
Arnold, I respect many of the points that you brought, and please understand if I specifically reference them, it's out of respect for your opinion on that.
You're good.
As a board, I don't want us to get caught up in the fact that we have another $5 million that we can just go grab, like we're going to the store, and that we now need it. If we go for the 17 versus the 22 now, in 2 or 3 years, if you're needing that money, you have to do this process again and go back to the community and ask for an additional $5 million or whatever that number is for no tax rate increase bonding capacity at that time. You add an extra step that I don't necessarily see as a given. I don't necessarily see this as a given at this point in time. We have to do our due diligence to make sure that the community understands whatever amount we're going for and why we're using it. But I don't want to fall into the trap of thinking that we just all of a sudden grab that extra money anytime we want it, because we can't. With regards to the neighborhoods, I totally agree with getting the kids back in their neighborhoods. A couple of factual points. Actually, while we've never had a school sitting within the city of Shrewsbury, Lockwood School, which is now a college school, was a school in the Webster Grove School District for many, many years. And that did serve the Shrewsbury community, of which I've been a proud member of now for almost 25 years. So that was a neighborhood school for most of the Shrewsbury kids at one point in time. Unfortunately, that is no longer an option for us. With regards to moving staff, I completely agree that if you can loop counselors and assistant principals with their 6, 7, and 8, you can easily do that, especially if they're on the same campus. You can rotate those assistant principals, those counselors from the 6th grade wing to the 7th grade floor or wing to the 8th grade floor or wing, and then repeat the process. And you don't have them moving from a building in Rock Hill 1 year and then 2 more years at Hickson and then going back to a building in Rock Hill. So I think that certainly can be accomplished if they're on the same campus. I also don't want to fall in the trap of saying we didn't go far enough. I think the Building Advisory Committee, the Financing Advisory Committee have done yeoman's work to establish a priority list, especially the Building Advisory Committee, in which we've gone through several times. And I think, personally, I think many of those things can be done, and if there is flexibility there, that if we do come in on time under budget, which our district has a history of doing very well, and we're gonna hope the same thing, no matter what amount, that some of those other things can be accomplished. I certainly appreciate all those points, Arnold. I've kind of always felt like we tried to do something like what we've discussed before back in 2015. This was a part of that plan, was to bring the sixth graders to the Hickson site. Whatever reason it is, personally, I think that probably would have already been done at this point in time had we had a passage at that point in time. But I think we've now got another chance to get to the bite of the apple that says, let's do what we can to get everything done that we need to do now, and not just assume that we can go get extra money if we need to down the road. Because I don't think that that's something that our public would be very happy with, to say, well, wait a minute, you just came back to us in 2019, and now in 2021 or 22 you want another 5 or 8 or whatever. I won't be on the board then, but it'll be I think it would be a tougher sell to go back a second time to do what I think we can do now. So.
Thank you. Any comments, Christine?
I have a comment that's not fully,
We can come back to you.
okay.
Or we can watch you ruminate. Perhaps if we come back to you, maybe a little less stressful.
The heat is emanating, it's gestating in there. She's trying.
Thus far, we've avoided using the Jeopardy theme. We're going to keep it that way. Joe.
So I agree with a lot of your comments, Arnold, but I still go back to the fact that I like the idea of 6th, 7th, and 8th being together. It just makes sense to me. I feel like Hickson has come a long way under leadership of Grace Lee. I know for years it's been in the community at least thought of as the weak point. And I feel like if we could make that more cohesive and improve the programming so that there's better options, which you could do still at Steger, but like for foreign language and those kinds of things, if you could bring that to 6th grade, I just see that as a really good thing for our kids.
Kina?
I agree with Joe. I do see your points, by all means. But, and to me, and this could be me just not completely grasping all the numbers, eventually those kids that are overcrowding the elementaries are going to be at the middle school. And so I think at some point we've got to look further into the future. And just like Joe said, more opportunities for the kids at middle school level. Having the counselors rotate, all of that's wonderful. Like Amy said, having special needs kids not have that extra transition. I mean, to me, it just all makes sense as well. So that's just
okay.
The opportunities to make sure that Gibbons, as far as diversity and equity, that's where it's going to be time to think outside the box. Is there a way to, have kids join together in after-school activities? I mean, I don't know. There's options, I think, that we can come up with, or that teachers or somebody can come up with, that will provide those opportunities. It doesn't have to just be in your box here. I think it can be done. We just have to put a little thought into it. That's what.
Have you had any more? Do you want a couple more minutes?
I have a couple of things. One is that I heard you say that right now bringing kids from their neighborhood to Edgar Road is equitable, and I would argue that's not equitable. It's bringing diversity to Edgar Road, but it's not bringing equity, because of course we know that
Right.
through no fault of their own there is an opportunity gap, and it's a lack of opportunity. And so I think that this option B would present an opportunity to close that gap. I would like to see that. I mean, we can't predict the future, but I like that we're thinking long range about that. I've done a lot of reading about and listening to the decisions that came out of the 50s and then here in the 70s, and one thing stuck in my mind, and that was that busing was described as a complex solution that never quite solved the problem. I heard a speaker at Webster University say that we learned to go to school together, we learned to ride the bus together, but we've not really learned to live together. I think those are still challenges that we're going to have to face under the option B, again, given what I said earlier about knowing that likely we're going to see less of our schools. I agree with Keita. I think that some creative solutions might help us do that, help kids cross that, help families cross that line. Those are just some of the thoughts I have. But like you, I think that not only do we have great leadership and now a really positive direction with the middle school, that I would love to see fewer transitions there, but I think we have also great leadership at Givens, that I think this is just kind of perfectly timed.
Okay. If it's all right, I have some comments, so perhaps if I can make mine, and then I'll return it back to you, so you've sort of had a chance to get regarding it. So,
Amy's at some point too.
Oh,
Sure.
yeah, and so
I don't know when.
Amy's, I was actually going to.
Hold on.
All right, it's more related to me. I tell you what, I will, as John's mentioned this, let me first, so this is a statement from Amy Clendan, and I was perhaps going to read this a little later, but I'll read it right now. Okay. Dear colleagues, I regret that I am not able to attend tonight's meeting, but wanted to share my thoughts regarding the important decision the board may make this evening. I wholeheartedly support the proposal to make much-needed safety and accessibility improvements to all our schools, to convert Hickson to a 6th, 8th grade middle school, and to convert Steger Givens to a single neighbourhood elementary school. Our elementary buildings have been at or over capacity for a number of years. This affects class sizes, student-teacher ratios, as well as the availability of space for collaboration and small group learning. Of the many options presented and considered by the board, administration and community, I believe the Hickson conversion is the best solution because it addresses immediate and future space issues while also improving educational experiences and opportunities for all students. First, the conversion of Steger Givens to a neighbourhood school will give the families in the northern part of the district a school that serves their community. A school to which students can walk rather than being bused to more distant schools for the benefit of other students. This is an equity issue, which we will have the opportunity to address while also relieving crowding and improving safety and accessibility. Second, although the Steger year has been a positive experience for many students, 3 changes in 5 years can be very difficult on students who struggle with transitions, particularly students with special needs. Teamwork and consistency are essential for special education students and their parents. Teachers, support staff, administrators, and parents work for months, if not years, to learn what strategies and supports will enable the student to succeed. When the student leaves the building, their team changes and progress may be lost. While the extra transitions required by our current 6/8 structure are hard on many kids, these transitions are particularly detrimental to special education students who most need our support. This too is an equity issue. I sincerely appreciate the work of Dr. Simpson, Mr. Ellerman, Ms. Kite, and the Building and Finance Committees who spent countless hours researching our options, vetting them with the community, providing information and answering questions. I encourage the board to approve the proposed resolution. Respectfully, Amy. She's speaking obviously to option B. In terms of just the comments that I did, so those are Amy's comments. She submitted that to John and I, knowing she couldn't be here. And I can give you a copy of that if you want to include that in the record later. Okay, so in terms of option A, so I think first and foremost, I think that whatever we do, I think we have to address all of the ADA issues, and I think we have to address all of the safety issues. Much as I appreciated the impassioned words from Mr. Law at our last meeting, and recognizing that the high school auditorium is used for a lot of things and is a valid component, if the money runs out, I'm afraid for me that's probably where the money's going to cut short. Now, as Steve points out, we have a very good record of coming in under budget, and I would certainly hope there's a good chance that we can actually go through all of the things that were prioritized by the various committees on the list. But we will have to prioritize. We will only have a certain amount of money we have. To Steve's comment about going back again, if we only do 17 now, going back again to get the rest, I will tell you, for me, that's not whilst it's out there, that's not a reason to go and choose one option or the other. I trust the community that if we make a case to them that is reasonable, I believe that the money will be made available. We've had various conversations as to why our last proposal didn't succeed, but I think that certainly part of it was communication, and frankly the other part was going and asking for too much money. I really believe that. I don't believe that we went and told people. So what I see here is an opportunity. We've gone back. We've gone and said, okay, what can we do without going and raising the debt levy? And I recognise whatever we do, we call this a no tax increase. What it really is, it's a delay of a reduction in future taxes. So nobody's going to get any more pain, but equally the pain is not going to be reduced in the future. I think we all recognise that. No tax increase is a language that's been adopted, but let's be very clear. What we're talking about is not decreasing the taxes somewhere further down the line. I don't have a problem with that at all. I think that if we're spending the money wisely, I think that's something we can get people to buy into. We're not asking them to put up any more money, so I'm hoping that doesn't cause, so we're not increasing people's pain. My problem with A is I view it as a stopgap, and I view it as a stopgap that really probably eliminates the opportunity to go and change direction and do other things later. I believe that from a safety and accessibility consideration, I think we need to get rid of the modulars as soon as possible. I also think we need to do all of the other ADA compliant work, and I think we need to do the other safety recommendations. I don't see if we go with A. I don't believe I say getting rid of the modulars to me over time, and it will take time, is an important consideration. But I say more than anything, I think that this is our chance, or whenever we do this, will be our chance to actually, if we believe that eliminating transitions is important, this is the chance to go and do this. So I think if we go with option A, I think we take the option in the future to go and eliminate those transactions. Realistically, I think we take that off the table. And to me, that is the other important consideration. So I will tell you that if this comes down to a vote to option A alone, I personally will vote no on option A alone. I believe it's a stopgap. I don't believe it's in the best interests. And I would actually, at that point, I would go back and say, okay, I want us to go back and rethink things, and I want us to go and see, is this the way we want to go? So just give advance notice of that. I seconded Arnold's motion because I thought it was very important that everybody have a chance to go and hear what Arnold has to say and to get this out.
Yeah, and
You've been waiting patiently.
I appreciate that, David, because having the conversation is really important for us and for the community, and that they hear the conversation and what we believe and think on these things. As it relates to, no matter which one passes, I will tell you, some people will say, if option B passes, they did too much, we don't like the big middle school. If option A passes, they were short-sighted, they should have done, it's not a perfect solution, folks. None of it is, I can tell you that. There is no perfect solution, or it would have been done a long time ago. Mm-hmm. And we'd be living in a perfect school district right now with perfect buildings and exemplary class sizes and everything that we would want. But it's not like that. And so you look at, anybody can play an armchair, a school administrator or school board member, but when you have to make the vote and you have to look at the information that you're given, and thank you to the Building Advisory Committee, Facilities Group, to the Finance Advisory Committee, to the administration for putting all the information together, because it was a lot of information. We're going to come down how we come down on the decision, and it goes to the community how it's decided, and people can second guess what that is, but it is what it is. And that's it.
Okay. Anybody have any more comments
Just a couple more real quickly, because as everything, it was gestating in my head too. 'Cause,
Okay, all right.
With regards to the redistricting subject that we talked about, I will tell you that one thing that is almost constant in many school districts, especially those that are growing, that have the ability to create new buildings and new campuses, they redistrict regularly. Our community redistricted in a major way approximately 33, 34 years ago, and with the creation of Steger as a middle school, Hickson as a middle school, and the ninth graders going to the high school, and they closed buildings, and there was a lot of changes. And the one thing the community did was survive. There were going to be people that were not going to be happy no matter what, and there are going to be people that are going to be really happy because of the changes that are being made. I will tell you the one thing, and I've said it before, I think the people that will have the hardest time dealing with that is typically the parents. And I think our kids will move and be happy and thrive. To Arnold's point about test scores at the Givens, the Givens site at this point, and their success despite their relative class size, that would say to me would be, then that's incumbent on the district as a whole, specifically the administration and the building levels, to try to replicate that kind of success across the district. If they're experiencing some things and some benefits from certain things, then let's try to get those benefits out to everybody. And I think that's a matter of the day-to-day operations of the district. So those were just a couple of things.
Thank you very much. Anybody else? I'm going to give you the last word, by the way, Arnold.
Well, I wanted to say, I forgot to say, that is too something I heard you say that I had been thinking about, which is moving teachers. And I wondered if there might be a way to move teachers to Givens in a way that excites and maybe encourages families, because I don't think families are attached to a building. I think families are attached to teachers.
Absolutely.
And is there a way we can move teachers in a way that excites and fills that in a maybe faster way? I do have a daughter who is in a modular. It is not an ideal environment. When I visited during the Living Wax Museum, it's loud, it echoes, it's cold, they don't have access to a water fountain. It's not an ideal learning environment. And yet still, I would say, I'd rather us look at a long-term solution rather than a short-term solution.
Anybody else?
I would just say that I feel like it hasn't been that long ago since we added on to Bristol, Clark, Hudson, and so I agree. And so I feel like by adding on to schools, we're just doing the repeating rather than looking at a bigger solution to a crowding problem. And as a parent, to get rid of Steger and to combine those schools from a driving perspective, it's a nightmare when you have 3 kids at 3 different schools or 4 kids at 4 different schools. That's a big burden for people to try and navigate, and the times are different. You have a 7:20 start at Steger and 8:20 at Hickson, and anyway, I think it's a good thing.
Okay. So if nobody else has got anything else, I would like, Arnold, before we call the question, I'd like to give you just a chance if there's anything else you'd like to add.
Sure. If we're growing like districts around us, then we would be not building a large middle school. We would be minimizing what we're doing. We would go to 2 middle schools if we're growing like a Lindbergh district or a Kirkwood district. 2 other factors that I know for some members in the community may be more of a wow. Okay.
Good old snow.
Oh my
God. There was a snowstorm.
There's ice coming on. So we're going to be needing a new district office, apparently.
There's that other $5 million.
I need a new roof for the area here.
What did you say? I believe that was a bit of an explanation point.
Right. The gods have spoken. Go ahead, Arnold.
It's what I was going to say, I guess, that was interrupted. No, and this is non-resident staff, kids, and I'm not going to belabor these points, and also allowing resident families to kind of go what school they want to go to if there is room. Those things, while I think they're very accommodating, and I think they're very encouraging, and we've been, I think, done an extremely great job with that. That has to be moderated in some respect, or really seriously watched, because it can blow things completely out of the water. And we like to be responsive to parents and their families who may want to go to a certain place, but if we're going to begin to overcrowd another building because of that, or be overcrowded because of that, that is something that we need to look at.
Thank you.
And I want to tell you I appreciate all of you in listening and contemplating and ruminating and asking questions and giving comments. I really appreciate that.
Okay, so with that, I would call the question. So we have a motion. We have an amendment on the floor that we basically change the amount of money to be borrowed from 22 to 17 million dollars. That has been proposed and seconded. So if we can have a roll call vote on the amendment, please.
No.
Keller?
No.
Stout?
No.
Madison?
No.
No.
Yes.
Okay, that amendment fails. Second, I would ask if there are any other amendments proposed to the motion. So the motion now reverts back to one Mr. Law proposed, which basically asks for, which will follow Exhibit A in your paperwork and seeks to borrow $22 million. At this point, any other amendments anybody would care to offer to that proposal? And if not, then what we'll do is we'll now proceed to discussion of the original proposal, and after we've had discussion of that, then we will move to a vote on that. Okay? So we'll start this way, I guess, and go around. And equally, if you want time to ruminate or whatever, I'll absolutely pass you by and come back. So, Dr.
I'll ruminate.
Okay, absolutely.
We're ruminating over.
Well, no. So basically, do you have any comments? So
Anything
we
about
revert back to the motion that was put, which is basically what is Exhibit A in your packet. So do you have any comments as to that? What I want to do is give everybody a chance to comment on that, and then we will have a vote on this proposal. Okay? So, and if you don't have, that's fine. You don't have to have any comments. I just want to. I want to make sure everybody's had a chance to to offer anything they want.
I will also ruminate.
Okay, absolutely. Ms. Dawn.
I'm ruminating.
Excellent. Well, lots of another record show. Everyone's thinking very hard about this. Nothing?
I don't need to ruminate. I pretty much talked about how B over A before was that rationale still holds. So.
Okay. Yeah, I'll just offer a brief comment then. I mean, I very much appreciate what Arnold presented, and I appreciate what he's doing, which is let's make sure that we're spending money wisely. Let's make sure we go and get the ADA, the safety issues done. And he's offering a vision as well that he sees. And at the same time, I take what he says, which is everybody has the same goal here, and it's just the way we're going to do it is perhaps different. I'm supportive of option B. I think it gives us. Within a framework, we're not going to have to. Yes, we're not going to we're not going to reduce people's taxes as quickly as we might otherwise have done. We're not going to have to increase people's taxes. I think this does give us an opportunity to do for what even I realize $22 million is a lot of money, but I still think it's a limited and it's a well thought out set of packages. It addresses safety, it addresses ADA, it addresses the transfers, and in the long term it will address space and crowding needs. And so for those reasons, I think that this is a reasonable thing to go and present to the community, and so I will be happy to support that. Any of our ruminees care to offer anything else?
I would add that I really want to thank the Finance Committee and the Building Committee and your work, the way you're describing the community as a guru of what you do to allow us to be able to pursue this in the way that we can. But two, that I've heard even from a member of city council, that they really appreciated the way that we went about this over the fall semester by getting as much community feedback in as many different ways as we did to come to a solution that it feels to me is backed by the community. I appreciate that.
Thank you. Okay, if there are no further comments, then I would call the question that we approve the language as detailed in Exhibit A. I think that's probably easier than the way, if that's acceptable, might I state it like that? Okay. So we have a proposal from Mr. Lowe, we have a second from Mr. Dahl. Again, I'd call for a roll call vote, please.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Ms. Keller?
Yes.
Mrs. Dowell?
Yes.
Mr. Addison?
Yes.
Ms. Quinn?
Yes.
Dr. Stricker?
No.
Okay, thank you. That passes 5-1. And so, I'm not sure exactly, what's the, I mean, I will sign this and this then goes up to...
Yeah, there's actually a second resolution that just is just instructing that you've approved the ballot language, and then there's a second instruction that it's supposed to go to the election commission and has responsibilities to get that done by the 22nd and have the publications occur. So that was the second set of
If
resolutions.
somebody would like to outline, would like to propose as outlined, proposed as outlined by our council, that would be good. So moved will work well as
I make a
language.
motion we approve the ballot language, Proposition E as written,
Okay.
and the resolution that the school district have notice of a special bond tax election, and that this resolution is in full force and effect and after its passage and approval.
Does that meet what you're looking for?
Good.
Okay, we have a proposal from Dr. Stricker, second.
Second.
I think Joe actually started to.
Prematurely. I was so excited about it.
All right. Again, so roll call vote, please.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Ms. Keller? Yes. Mrs. Dowell?
Yes.
Mr. Addison?
Yes.
Ms. Quinn?
Yes.
Dr. Stricker?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, I appreciate everybody's hard work in doing this. As I'd echo the comments about the building advisory. Also, I mean, just members of the community who have who've offered comments on this, and members of all of the communities that make up the Webster Groves School District. I think we very much appreciate. We've gone out for numerous surveys. People have responded back. I've certainly had people have contacted me with their opinions, with information. I've tried to take all of that into account, and I know they've contacted others as well. I just appreciate the interest that everybody has in this. Okay. That said, next, Mr. Almond.
Thank you. Take one and pass them around. I need copies of, written copies of the...
Yeah, I think we all have it online, but yeah, might as well.
Okay. Well, that's coming around. It's
You may have it online.
just a written version of what you have online there. But now that the board has made the decision to pursue a bond issue ballot initiative, we believe it's extremely important to get a running start for the possible sale of bonds after April election, of course, assuming that the community approves that bond issue. There's several reasons that we believe it's important to jump on that as soon as possible. Number one, the interest rate market has been trending in an upward direction, and the sooner, we believe the sooner that we can get to market at this time, the more favorable interest rate that we may get on our bonds. So time is of the essence in that sense. We'll continue to monitor that going forward. But we want to be prepared to do that if that continues to be the case. We are aware of several other entities, political subdivisions in the state that are targeting the April election, since that's the only general election with a 4/7 passage requirement. that there are many others that are going to be on the ballot, and we're assuming that they will also be taking those bonds to market, and if we hit the market at the same time that they do, then it's somewhat like the law of supply and demand. The more bonds that are out there looking for funding, the higher the interest rate gets to be on those. The more investors would demand on that. So it's kind of like supply and demand like everything else, and so the sooner that we can get out there in front of that perhaps wave, the better off we'll be. Number two, also the funds, so we're going to hit the ground running from a planning and design and construction standpoint. It's going to take a little bit before we're ready to break ground because there's a lot of design work that needs to be done. But we're going to be, our intent is to begin the preparation work for that as soon as possible so that that design work can start right after any bond approval, and we won't have to go through a process of go through some of the developmental process that's necessary for that design work. And then finally, interest earnings. When we do have a bond issue and sell bonds, those funds go into the building account, and we can invest those until we do use them to pay for contractors, design work, and so forth, and those interest earnings can be reinvested back into projects, and that can go in addition to savings that we might get from designing and managing the projects, trying to use that savings to stretch the dollars as far as possible to bring in some more of the accessibility work and other facility projects the district would like to do. To add some interest earnings to that as well just gives us the ability to leverage those funds further. So the proposal that's in front of you this evening relates to bond counsel. There will be a proposal relating to financial advisor coming at a subsequent meeting. The bond counsel helps the district with the preparation of a preliminary official statement for the bonds. We want to go ahead and start preparing that preliminary official statement so we can go forward with that after April as soon as possible. They also help with legal compliance to ensure that the bond issue meets all of the legal and statutory requirements to be tax exempt. The financial advisor, which will be coming in a future meeting, probably the February 24th meeting, I think. That service helps us to market the bonds. They advise the district on the best structure related to the timing of the maturities and what works best and what the market is looking like in each of those areas. And they also work with the credit rating agency to put the district in the best light from a credit rating standpoint. Right now, the district has a AA plus, I believe, credit rating. I heard Joanne here before. AA plus, there's one step above that, AAA. You can't go any further than that. Don't know if the district can qualify for that, but we've got a good track record over the last few years, and they assist the district in at least getting our current credit rating confirmed, if not perhaps upgraded. The financial advisor would also evaluate bids when we receive bids on the bonds. We would expect multiple bids, and those bids would have to be evaluated to see which one had the best net interest cost for the district from the district standpoint. But regarding bond counsel, the recommendation that's in front of you this evening, the district issued an RFP to the top 3 bond counsels in Missouri, in the St. Louis area. We received 2 proposals in response to that. Then it's important to note, and where those bids were evaluated and the recommendations in front of you now, it's important to note that compensation to the bond counsel is contingent upon issuance of the bonds. So the district is not incurring any financial liability to begin this work right now. If the bond issue does not pass for whatever reason, then the district's not liable for any compensation to bond counsel. So at this point, I would be happy to answer any questions, but we are recommending Thompson and Coburn as district bond counsel. Thompson and Coburn has served as district bond counsel in the past. They were bond counsel on the recent December 2016 bond refund. We did it, as a matter of fact.
The details are laid out here. Does anybody have any questions? In which case I entertain I believe you need a motion then?
Yes.
Let's entertain a motion.
I make a motion to approve Thomas Colburn as district bond counsel for any bond sales pursuant to the April 2019 bond election.
I'll second that.
Okay. All those in favour?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, that passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Edgar Road Modular Classroom bid approval.
There's two handouts coming around on that. One is the formal, is the recommendations from the CFO's office. The other is some additional information and recommendation from Rob Stuber, the district's construction manager. This could kind of fall under the category of deja vu all over again. If you think back to this past, in January of 2018, I was standing in front of the board making a recommendation to add a second modular building to Edgar Road based on enrollment growth at that time. Enrollment growth is continuing there, particularly in the early grade levels. What's happening is that early grade levels have 4 sections of each grade level, 4 sections of kindergarten, 4 sections of first grade, second grade. At the upper grade levels, 4th and 5th grade this year, we have 3 sections. But as that the 3 sections of 5th grade graduates and moves on, we have 4 sections of kindergarten coming into the building. So instead of having K through 3 at 4 sections each and 4th and 5th grade at 3 sections each, next year we're going to have K through 4 at 4 sections each and 5th grade at 3 sections. And then the year after that, we'll be across the board K5, 4 sections each grade level. So that's creating the need for an additional classroom for the coming year. And we expect then another classroom or a second classroom will be needed then that following year. Each modular has 2 classrooms in it, so this one modular should meet our needs for the next 2 years, which is the construction period for an addition at Hickson. Assuming the bond issue passes, then this modular will serve our enrollment growth, projected enrollment growth needs or space needs at Edgar Road for the next 2 years. It may be another couple of years after that before space relief is actually begun to be felt at Edgar Road because of the transition period for kids attending the school before they move to their newly assigned school. So this modular we would expect would be needed at Edgar Road for probably 4 or 5 years. It would be the first one to be retired from that campus. And the reason for that is because a part of the recommendation that you see is that we're recommending that the board consider an alternative siting for it that would save the district about $60,000 on the modular. In all other respects, the modular would be the same as every other modular in the district. The siding would just look different. On it would be a cementized hardy board, what's called hardy board siding, so it's just as substantial, maybe even more substantial than the faux brick siding, but it won't look the same. We don't believe that that's going to be as much of an issue because this third modular is not going to be located alongside the current 2 modulars, but will be on the other side of the building, on the 3rd and 5th grade, kind of that north side instead of the south side of the school. And so we're recommending to the board to consider that option in order to, like what we were talking about earlier, trying to get some savings out of the projects that we have slated for the bond issue, to take those savings to be able to have those available for other kinds of projects. And given what we expect to be the temporary need for this during this period, we're recommending the board approve the purchase of a 3rd modular with the alternate siding as in the materials. I believe that we can vary the color. Rob Stuber, the construction manager, is here this evening, but we can vary the color of that siding.
You can choose the color.
Choose the color so that it's fits in with the rest of the building and maybe doesn't stand out as much as, I think I provided you with some sample copies of, in the board docs, there were copies of, or photographs of what this siding would look like. That's not the color that we would select for this particular location, but just gives you a sense of what it looks like.
Okay. Anybody got any questions? If not, I do, but I'll let everybody else go
Do
first.
modulars have resale value?
They do. There's a market for resale buildings, but there will be a cost for removing it and preparing it. What that resale value would be, we don't know. I haven't researched that yet. The district's plan initially is not to immediately dispose of them, even when we remove them. We've been exploring options to store them for a period of time to make sure that we won't have a need for them pop up somewhere else and turn around 2 years after getting rid of our modular buildings and have to turn around and buy another modular building after we just disposed of ones that we already had. So we're looking into alternatives for being able to store. Maybe not all of them, because at that point we'll have 5 of them, 1 from Avery, 1 from Clark, and 3 from Edgar Road, but perhaps holding on to 2 or 3 of them for that possibility.
So building on Joe's question, do you believe that the resale value is going to be impacted by the siding that you put on the unit?
That's a great question. The siding would have to be, the faux brick siding would have to be removed for transport. So if we were to sale the modular unit itself, it would have to be with the understanding that whoever buys it would be responsible for detaching the faux brick panels and being responsible for that. So there's the cost, there's the increased cost of not only removal of the modular itself, but they would have to deal with the faux brick siding removal. The hardy panel comes pre-installed from the factory.
Okay.
So I think if there's one thing that jumped out, that would be it.
So so what I wanted to avoid was a situation where, yes, you're saving $60,000 by not putting the brick siding on, but somebody will pay you $70,000 more in resale, or will pay you $55,000. So that, I want to make sure we're taking into account sort of the cost. But so what I'm hearing you then say is that no, actually, the $60,000 is almost certainly sunk cost, and it may actually cost you more money because somebody's got to go and get rid of this.
Very well could.
So okay, all right.
Good question.
I'm sorry, Steve. Did you have?
No, I was just going to historical. When we first put the modulars in at Avery, Edgar Road, and Clark, I know that very soon after that, the company that we actually bought them from was saying, when you're ready to not use them anymore, we will certainly be interested in getting them back from you, because they were really impressed with how we made use of them. And I'm not saying that would be the same story now 5 or 6 years later, but I know that there was initially that the company that we did buy those from was very keen on reacquiring them down the road. So
I have one other question. So at the point in time that we sell any or all of the modulars, what happens to the money for those? Is that something we can use to reduce the amount of money that we've spent on the bonds? Or perhaps if we haven't managed to fill all of the, we had our need list to include all of the ADA and safety, would we be able to use that money to go on anything that was left over from the ADA and safety issues?
Sure. I mean, we're talking about years in the future now at this point, but it would become, that's technically surplus property. The board would have to declare it as surplus property. It would be put out to bid, and then the funds received for those buildings could be used at the discretion of the board. You could use it for other facilities projects. You could use it to help defray debt service expenses. You could, there's a number of things that it would be really at the board's discretion.
Okay.
Do any of these vendors lease modular units?
All of them, yes.
Have we investigated leasing versus purchasing?
I believe we did last year when we needed to purchase that, and the cost of leasing in just a few years was going to exceed the cost of purchasing. So
That's a good question, though.
So if our target was 5 years, then that's not a cost-effective answer.
I don't believe so,
Okay,
based
fine.
on what we did.
No,
last year.
that's. I just want to make sure we're sort of talking in terms of specifics. That's all. Anybody else with any other questions or comments? So I guess the one question we have. I guess the one question we have actually that we haven't addressed. So is whether or not to get the siding. My personal view, I would not. I would, aesthetics. I'll forego the aesthetics for $70,000. I would not go and I would go with the cheaper siding. That would be my personal view. I don't know if anybody else has any comments on that.
I know that at Edgar Road, anyway, the south side is closer to houses, and I appreciate that the brick was purchased for those, whereas this is going on the north side, which isn't as close to houses.
That was one of the main reasons why we chose the faux brick when we first started that.
And it's going to be screened by trees even for the houses. It would be to the back of those houses and screened by trees as well on that campus.
Okay. Anybody else got any comments about the siding?
Can we make sure that they do a factory matchup of the brick with the siding at the factory, or are they going to rely on us to match that and paint it ourselves?
We would self-perform that.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions about? So I think this. I think so. The feeling from the board though is save the money on the siding. Okay. I will entertain a motion with regard to the modular unit.
I make a motion the Board of Education approve the $237,685 bid alternate from PacVan for the acquisition and installation of the modular classroom building at Edgar Road Elementary as presented in the summary.
Second that.
Okay. And all those in favour?
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? That passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Okay. And we've removed item 4.04 from the agenda before we started. So we now arrive at our second opportunity for public comment. I invite anybody who has wished to offer comment to step forward. Mr. Buck, we know where you are, we know where you live, so you can dispense with that.
Okay, first of all, Bruce, I think Trump might be interested in that cheap siding for the wall. Concerning option A and B, there's one person in this room that we haven't asked, and I would love to know where Jessica is. After all, this is not your district, this is her district. It's their district. Can the students weigh in a little bit here? I would love to hear their point of view. As you know, I have been on what is now option B since the very beginning. At least I've been consistent. The reason is that I like the 3 grades at Dixon. I think it's for a lot of reasons. But most importantly, North Webster was founded right after the Civil War, and it was the St. Louis's and America's, one of its most historic, all-black neighborhoods for 100 years or more. Its all-black school was Douglas for years, and people went there, and that thrived. But then it was closed down in the mid-'70s for desegregation. And what happened then? All of the black children were divided up. And for 40 years, these families and these kids have been having to cross Kirkham to walk, ride their bike, or be driven to the 5 other elementary schools in the district, primarily white. Okay? North Webster is now transforming. There is an influx of new young white families, and people other than me have said that North Webster today is not an all-black neighborhood. It may be the most integrated neighborhood in all of Webster Groves, which says that these kids deserve to have their neighborhood school brought back. after 40 years. Arnold, I love you. I hope you know that. I'm not a fan of 7-0 votes here or in the city council, and they know it. Debate, dissent, differences of opinion are a sign of health, not weakness. And I appreciate your courage in voting your conscience on this, even though it may be against the norm, okay? I would say that because of what happened with S&W, I would get immediately right to work with brainstorming and second guessing what the rest of the community may think about this. I've already heard some objections. You know what they are? The school district is overreaching. They're thinking too big, scale back, and it may not affect my pocketbook, but they get it. That's where S&W was, right? It was asking for too much. So we got to think through these objections because I know they're out there. Next to last, or lastly, actually, I want to recognize Kathy Vesperini. I think she's the unsung hero in this entire effort and process. From a communication standpoint, from the focus groups, from the surveys, on and on. My sense, and I don't live with Kathy and not here every day, but I think Kathy is integral to all that happening. And I got to tell you, I was at a city council meeting last week and I said, you know, you better touch base with Kathy because she's the communications director and she's doing an awesome job, and they don't have anything like that at city council, and they struggle with their communications. In fact, they're terrible at it. We don't even know what they're doing. But you guys, it was a beautifully run process. I think the end result proves it. So I would congratulate all of you, but I really congratulate Kathy. So.
Thank you very much. Again, we'll let you dispense with the introductions.
Okay, thank you. I want to thank you for getting to your decision. Personally, it was painful and I disagree with it, but you did the due diligence. Arnold, thank you for being that voice in the wilderness that's not part of the norm. It reminds me of the situation that Webster Groves City Council went through earlier when they were selecting a city attorney. It made sense. And based on all of the people that were there, it was the legal and right thing to do. But it had a major impact on the community. And it's still having a major impact on the community. The decision you just made will have just as much of an impact on the community. So, life's decisions, and when you look around and think about the people that did it, you're the people that made that decision that will affect this community for the next 50 years. Because the changes that took place on rearranging the school, it has an impact that lasts that long. At least 20, a generation. And as we talk about North Webster, a neighborhood schools, I grew up in an area where we talked about neighborhood schools. And I saw the law from a standpoint that you shut a school down and all of that. We shut Douglas down. And the people that will come back and go back to Douglas won't be the blacks that were there originally. They'll be primarily white. So right now I look at it and say the decision that you made is a change systemic. It's the systemic approach to that decision. Because it will affect the whole system here. I was hoping for a different system. Because I used to say, and I still believe, Webster and Rock Hill is ground zero for social change in this country in a positive way. It did in 1865 with Rock Hill Presbyterian Church, and it affected the whole community. 150 years later, I looked at it and said, what's going to happen here again? But let's get it back to the way it used to be. Some people don't want things to change in a positive way. You want to keep it the way it used to be. You had a chance to do that, not from a standpoint that what really made sense, but on a social justice and a racial standpoint, I'm disappointed. But on an economic and legal standpoint, yeah, it made sense. You did what was best economically. But on a social and racial basis, I disagree with it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anybody else? Please, come forward.
My name is Tyler Bembo. I live at 1179 Hawken Place. I'm currently a senior at Webster Groves High School. I just want to thank all of you. This was a very important matter, and every Monday I read my Webster Kirkwood Times, and so I would always just be keeping up with everything. And I know when I was in 6th grade, and I went going from 5th to 6th, and then 6th to 7th, that was definitely a large change that was made. And personally, it could be a little stressful. I know definitely the traffic in 6th grade was not fun, but I mean, like you had said, that's going to be everywhere, but definitely it's going to be a smoother process to just be 6, 7, 8, and I definitely feel like that's going to be a build-up for high school. And I know it was mentioned about diversity, and one of the great things is that working with Dr. Leah Hickson, I know she is doing some great things, and I know that for the 6th, 7th, and 8th graders there, that they are definitely going to be impacted in a good way, especially coming to high school. I know 3 of our assistant principals are colored, and 2 of which are females, and I know that weight is has a very heavy impact. And I know our building principal, Dr. Irvin, he is a white male, but you're usually working with your assistant principals, and I feel like you're going to get the diversity wherever you go. Again, thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Please.
I'll be brief. I'm Alan Todd. I live at 35 Rosemont Avenue. I have 2 children in the district. One is a 1st grader at Bristol, and then I have a little guy at Ambrose in the 2-year-old room. Just want to start by saying thank you guys for taking the time to have this discussion today. Sort of seeing government action here is always uplifting for sort of a government junkie like myself, so I appreciate seeing that. And I also just want to thank the administration and Dr. Simpson and everybody for the process that they put this through, the sort of the open and honest and sort of transparent way that we've gathered information and that we've discussed all possibilities that face the district. I think is important, and it helps build goodwill and community support for whatever decision is going to be here tonight, so I think that's important. Thank you for the decision that you made. I very much agree with option B. I am very supportive of that, I think, for a couple of reasons. Number one, I think the sort of more integrated, less transition is important. I think that's going to be very good for our children. The opportunities that it's going to bring at that new middle school campus is important. But also from an equity perspective, sort of as Christine said, some of our schools might lose some diversity, but I think from an equity standpoint, this is absolutely the right decision for people in the community to have that neighborhood school available to them to have that opportunity. So I very much appreciate that. I know that David, I've heard you say it before, and I think it was in the resolution maybe, but for me, I think it's important for people that have kids at an elementary school to be able to continue at that elementary school. Also, there are those people that have a couple of kids that might be sort of on the verge that might end up with 2 and 1. I think it's important, if there's any way possible, to minimize the amount of drop-offs and schools that those families have to have is important as well. I know, that is a complicated process as well in terms of rezoning and sort of speeding up the space pieces. But those are just a couple of things to consider as you move forward in the process. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anybody else? Okay. Thank you very much. Appreciate all the comments as ever. And now move on to the consent agenda, and I will entertain a motion with regard to the consent agenda.
I move we approve consent agenda items 6.02, 6.03, 6.04, 6.05, 6.06, and 6.07.
Second.
Keita, ladies first. Absolutely. All in favour?
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? Okay, that passes unanimously. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
Okay, all in favour?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Joe. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, everybody who came and sat through and listened to this.